Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Vince Molinaro, and welcome to this episode of the Lead the Future podcast. I'm very excited to have Hege Sollie-Zetlmayer with me today. She is the CHRO at PTC Therapeutics, Inc., based in New Jersey. It's a global biopharmaceutical company. Let me tell you a little bit about Hege because she comes with quite an extensive background. PTC Therapeutics, as I said, is a global biopharmaceutical company that is focused on developing treatments and medications for rare diseases. So they do very important work. Hege herself comes with a rich background as an entrepreneur, business leader, and she excels in human resources and culture topics, and specifically blending strong business acumen, strategic thinking, and talent development in a way that enhances company performance and creates fulfilling careers for employees. Previously, as a general manager, Hege served on the Pharma Association board and was the first woman to lead the Norwegian Medical Device Association. Her expertise spans HR transformation, strategic alignment, talent management, employee engagement, diversity and inclusion, and executive compensation and succession. Hege has led teams across Europe, Asia, the United States, and the Middle East, and is known for her passion in equality and sustainability. And she believes that company culture is the secret sauce to success. She also serves currently on the board of directors of PTC International. So, with that, welcome, Hege, to the Lead the Future podcast. Very excited to have you with us, and thank you for making time really to share your experience and wisdom with us.
Thank you for inviting me, Vince. That is an honor, and thanks for the awesome introduction. You made me sound quite interesting.
Well, only because that is your background. So the awesome introduction is a small representation of the powerhouse that you are as an individual. So thanks for being here. So why don't you start? Always like to get a sense of the company and kind of your role. So tell us a little bit about PTC Therapeutics and your role as CHRO.
Happy to. So, as you said, PTC, we are a global biopharmaceutical company. We are based out of New Jersey. We are a leader and an innovator in the rare disease space, and where we have the patients front and center of everything we do. We have about 1,000 great, passionate, and dedicated employees in more than 20 countries. And all these people are working together to deliver transformative therapies for patients with rare diseases. And I can tell you, being part of this is truly filling me with a lot of gratitude. So my role in PTC, I am the CHRO. I am leading a team of HR professionals around the globe. When I started back in 2018, one of the first things I did, and I have to say, I really got carte blanche from the company to do the things I felt was needed to do. And that was to establish a HR business partner organization. And that is, I cannot recommend it enough for all companies. These are experienced HR leaders that sits at the table with the leaders that they support, functional leaders and business leader and executive leaders, and are advising them in everything related to people and organizational matters. And since we established the business partnering back in 2018, the other functions has followed suit. And it really is a model that works very well. It's efficient, it's easy, and it is very appreciated.
So it's interesting that that's coming in and being carte blanche, that that was a critical strategic decision you had put in place as a CHRO. And while in your case, you've executed it with great success, I've also seen that model not always work.
Mm.
And what have you learned about kind of what works, or what doesn't, what to pay attention to, in your experience?
So I think that model is only a model that works if you really have a seat at the table where the discussions are taking place.
Yeah,
And I know from colleagues in the HR world that that isn't always the case. In PTC, it is the case. So maybe I've been really, really lucky, but I have been at the seat from the beginning, and so have the HR business partners that are in my team. And honestly, if I wouldn't have had a seat at the table, I wouldn't want to have that job.
right. Now there are a lot of very senior uh, HR practitioners, CHROs, VPs of HR, who, everyone has that desire to have a seat at the table. But I have also found not everyone really is able to get that in a successful way. So what is it about? What have you learned that is really critical for a CHRO to genuinely and really legitimately have that seat at the table? And how do you define what that even means? Let's start there first, and then tell us a little bit about what have you learned on how do you not just get the seat at the table, but how do you remain uh, a really relevant voice at that executive table?
Well, first you have to show who you are, right? You have to use your voice and your experience, and it's not enough to have a seat at the table. If you are not able to take part of the conversations, to be a part of the decisions, you're just filling a chair, right? And it's not for everyone to be an HR business partner. You have to be a person who really takes an interest in the company you work for, who has experience and knowledge and skills enough to understand how an effective organization is built,
Yeah,
who has a hunch for what works and what doesn't work,
yeah.
who knows how to interact with people. Yeah, it's I don't know if I can.
Yeah. Well, I also think, I like your, it's one thing to, I suspect it also would have been the expectation of your CEO and the executives that they wanted kind of a strong HR presence at the table. Was that your case?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and trust me, if that hadn't been the case, because I
Yeah.
have been I have been during these years from time to time headhunted to positions as CHRO
Right.
or high HR positions. I always ask, is this position, is it in the leadership team? Is it in the executive committee?
Right.
And if it isn't, if the answer is no today, but it might be, I don't want to waste my time on that.
Yeah. Yeah. But what you also described, though, what was interesting is you didn't really describe, obviously it's important to have depth of experience in a number of, human resources organized, OD and talent areas. You've got to have it, but you really talked about understanding the business, knowing the business. As you were talking, I remembered another great CHRO that we worked with years back when she joined the executive team, and they were having their Monday morning meeting, and there was a business issue that they were trying to resolve, and the CEO went to her and on for her perspective, and her initial reaction was, "Oh, no, no, I'm just HR." And then he stopped her in her tracks and said, "Listen, if you have a seat at this table, I expect you to weigh in on business issues. So you better, get your act together." And it was a great moment for her because she certainly was more than capable of rising
Yeah.
to the occasion, but in that moment doubted herself. And So I think, to your experience is it's kind of leading with the business first,
Yeah.
and really understanding the business and then bringing that lens. But tell me, like, I mean, it's got to exist at your level, but I believe the success means that then the HR business partners that you put in place have got to have that as well, because then they're
Yeah.
dealing with executives and leaders at other levels. And how do you ensure that they're able to do kind of what you do at the executive table? They're able to do it deeper in the organization.
Well, I mean, it is a bit like when you're hiring people, right? You know what their interests are, what you think that they can be successful in. So I think as an HR business partner, you really need to be able to influence. You really need to be able to have tough discussions and to challenge, and you cannot be afraid of this person is maybe higher than me in the hierarchy, or maybe because it is a business leader, I feel that this person is more important and I should be careful.
Yeah.
You have to be a person who actually can take tough discussions, um, sometimes suggests solutions that you know will be difficult and might not even be greatly appreciated when you say it the first time. It's I think it has a lot to do with the personality that you have. It's
Yeah.
not easy to be an
Yeah.
HR business partner.
Yeah. And I think there's a big part of it that also is, while you have built your credibility at the senior level, every HR business partner then needs to build their personal credibility with their partner, right?
Oh,
To your
absolutely.
point, just that, if Hege goes off and says, "Hey, PTC, we're establishing an HR business partner model," that doesn't necessarily guarantee success. And
Yeah,
so credibility becomes important so that they can be, to use the overused word, but it's accurate, right? The trusted advisor to the leaders, the senior leaders that they support.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I mean, I did, as you should do from time to time. I probably should do it again soon, but I did a little. I checked in with
Yeah.
the people, the leaders that we are supporting, and kind of asked them what works well, what doesn't work so well. And we got a lot of feedback in return. And the one big thing was never change the HR business partner model
Okay.
because it works like
Yeah.
a dream.
That's great.
And I mean, it's all the other functions followed suit. So
Yeah.
it really does work.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
have
When
to be
done
part
right.
of the discussion. You have to be
Yeah.
part of the discussion. If not, it's just
Yeah.
words on a paper.
Yeah. Yeah. When done right, in which case you've done that, it's a great model. And in the fact you're getting the feedback that validates the model, then that's exactly the kind of feedback you want to have. So let's
Yeah.
let's build on that. So you come into the organization, you put that into place. And right now, what are some of the strategic challenges and opportunities that the organization is facing, and what are the implications of that, in terms of how your team is responding to support leaders?
So I think to go back a little bit, one of the most important thing that that happened after, let's say, setting up the organization was two things. One was the development, that we need to have good development programs for the people in PTC.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to necessarily buy it off the shelf. We created programs for us, by us. For example, the Emerging Leader Program that you know very well, Vince, which is a program that we made for us in PTC, and where we offer people that are relatively young in their career an opportunity to participate in this 6 months program. So that's one thing that was super important. And we built a talent management team, structured them also as business partners. They work very closely with the HR VPs. And the other thing we did that is crucially important, really crucially important, and where I'm very, very passionate, because I see a lot of companies as well as in politics that doesn't do this well, and that is succession planning. That was one of the first things I started after creating the HR kind of design and organization. And succession planning is so very obviously important and yet so very difficult.
Yeah. So
You
what
see
in
it
your
everywhere.
experience, what in your experience, I completely agree in terms of its criticality and the importance. What is your experience around the challenges, the difficulties that a CHRO might face with succession, and what have you learned? Or if you were saying, okay, everyone who's watching or listening to this podcast, these are the three watchouts to think about. What would you share?
I think it's on two dimensions. One is the intellectual thing, and the other one is the emotional thing.
Hmm.
Intellectually, everybody gets it.
Yeah.
Whether you run a political organization or you run a company, you need to have a good succession plan in place.
Yeah.
But it's difficult because when the time is there, it gets really, really personal.
Hmm.
It can be very hard to grasp. And I think people in my position need to understand that even if you work with, for example, a CEO or another critical position, and you are in full agreement that we need to have a good plan in
Yeah.
terms of succession, when the time comes where you because most people don't see that the time is here,
Mhm.
right? We don't want to see that.
Yeah.
But when the time comes, it's it's really hard for most people to grasp that the best thing for the organization is that I now step aside and let new people continue the journey.
Yeah.
And I think if you underestimate that challenge,
Yeah.
then it can be really, really heavy, very difficult. So you have to work diligently on it.
Yeah.
You have to talk about it.
Yeah.
It has to be if you have really high position. Certainly, this is an important thing for boards as well,
Yeah.
to always be on top of. Not if you don't have a succession plan in place. It's like being on a boat without life vest. It's
Yeah.
dangerous.
Yeah. Well, and
Uh,
it's
yeah.
clearly a board expectation, but then your ability to execute against that, because it typically does fall on CHRO to help the organization put the mechanisms in place. In many ways, it's also, and I love your thoughts on this because this has come up a lot when we've had these discussions with other organizations we work with. It's also incumbent on the leader themselves, whether that leader is the CEO or another senior executive or a leader in a very critical role for the
Yeah.
organization, that they're thinking about their own succession, right? That they're realizing they're not going to be the leader forever, and what am I doing to build um, the life vests in
Mhm.
case something a were to happen, or I feel like it's time for me to give the reins over to someone else for the next phase of organizational growth. What's been your experience? How many senior leaders do you see that actually proactively do that themselves, um, in terms of
We
paying
need to have a process in place,
Yeah.
right? It was one of the first things that I did, and also work with my team on, with the business partners.
Yeah.
You need to have a process in place. And of
Yeah.
course, in the beginning, it's like an education. It takes a bit of time.
Yeah.
For some people, it's easy. They're like, it's very rational. Of course, I need to have a successor. I have a whole bunch of people lined up that potentially could be it. For other people, it feels very threatening.
Yeah.
But what we have, which I also recommend for all organizations, is that you have a process where you check in regularly, where you go through, you talk about the shared talent pool in the organization. so that you know who they are. And you have each and every senior leader to present to the leadership team and say, okay, this is my organization. These are my critical roles. These are the successors that are identified for these roles, including my own. And they are identified for these reasons.
Yeah.
And then other people there will weigh in and say, wow, yeah, that I agree, this looks great, or this is great, or why did you choose this person, and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. That's kind of the discussion that has to happen. Because the thing is that then you know who the identified successors are, but you also know if there are no successors. And if you know that, then at least you know that when this person leaves or retires or something else happens, then you know that you would have to go outside and look.
Yeah.
And then you can prepare for that. The worst thing is when you are not prepared.
Yeah. If you're
And
caught
then,
off guard.
I just want to say one more thing around succession. It is that I have always practiced. I'm quite open, with my team. That I think that's how I prefer it. So,
Yeah.
and so far, I think people appreciate transparency.
Yeah.
So
And
what you
so,
always have to say to people when you say that you are identified as my successor, you
yeah,
always have to say it is a plan. It's not a promise,
correct.
because life happens and
Yeah.
organizations change.
Yeah. And what, and as the organization changes and the business changes, what they need from leaders may change. And so that's why
Exactly.
it can't be a promise. Now, the other part of that formula that my sense is you've also gotten, uh, more right than wrong is, certainly having a succession process, formalizing it so those discussions happen is one part. Then the other part is you've got to develop those leaders so
Yeah.
that they and tell us a little bit about the PTC leadership development journey, because it's you had referenced earlier the emerging leaders, but there are other things you've been you and your team have been doing. So tell us a little bit about that, because that's the other part of the formula that ties into succession.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have kind of built like stairs where you begin with, if you are new to the company, if you are new as a leader, whether you are new in the company, you might have been a leader before, but you haven't
Yeah,
been a leader in PTC, or you have been promoted and become a leader in PTC.
yeah,
We have a program for them to help them take on this incredible responsibility as it is to be
yeah,
a leader of people. Then we have the emerging leader, which we have the 3 tiers. I don't know if I already said that, but we have leading myself, leading others, and leading in a volatile or a disruptive world. And the intention there is we nominate a diverse group of people, maximum 20 per program, per emerging leader program. They are nominated based on what they do, like what they deliver, that they are seen as great performers in the organization, but also that they are seen as people that with a potential
yeah,
to take on more, including people leadership. And we want to, through that program, we want to secure that they know what that entails,
yeah,
right? Because you can be a phenomenal individual contributor, and then things can go really bad as a people leader. So we want to
yeah,
make sure that they really all understand everything in the journey of becoming a good leader. And there, for example, your leadership contract uh, is works like a dream, because it really pinpoints the challenges and the importance and the incredible responsibility it is to take on people
yeah,
responsibility. So we have that. Then for the next level, we have another program that we developed ourselves, which is the leadership excellence, which is taking what the emerging leaders kind of are leading, because these are people from from directors and up, who has a lot of experience, and then but we want to kind of give them even more. That's also a program on nomination. Then we have several programs that we have taken off the shelf, like situational leadership, that never stops being very important. We have emotional intelligence. We have dealing with conflicts. We have from boss to coach, because that is important.
Yeah.
That is very important, that you are, as a leader, that you also are a good coach. We focus on people's strengths. We are using the Clifton Strength Assessment for everyone, and everybody is sharing it. So, for example, in the Emerging Leader program, each executive committee member, including the CEO, are having 1 day each where they open the program, where they share their strengths, their profile, they share their journey, they answer very transparently all questions that the students have for them. And on top of that, they also invest a lot of time as sponsors for study teams.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that to me speaks volume of the importance of development from the very top of the house.
And certainly for the leaders, whether they're going through that onboarding program that they do, as whether they get into a role internally or join from outside, whether it's the emerging leaders, whether it's the leadership excellence for more senior leaders, when they see that level of executive involvement, they know this is a serious priority and investment for the organization. So, what have you learned about that? About securing executive involvement to support leadership development, because that's another area that I find, everyone talks about it. We know it's a good practice, but not everyone is able to execute against that to the extent that you have. So, what have you found? What are the top 2 or 3 things to do to ensure that that's in place, but also is sustained? Because I've sat in on certainly the sessions my team and I have been involved in, where exactly what you said. I've seen your executives speak openly, transparently. They've shared their stories. They've been really, really meaningful discussions. So you really get the sense of these are really genuine human beings in these very big roles, talking about their successes and when things haven't gone well, and that really lands well on emerging and future leaders. But so what's critical to get that executive engagement right?
I don't know, Vince, if maybe I have been extremely lucky and joined a company where leaders really understand the importance of people being developed. Because and we speak a lot about it, and we create programs ourselves, and they take part of it. So there is no such thing as stay in your swim lane. I actually hate that sentence, stay in your swim lane. We like to co-create, and you involve people, and you share where you are at, and you talk about this will be the return of investment. I mean, we have. Even when things have been tough, we have a very low turnover rate.
Yeah.
Like less than 10% over the last years of turnover. And of course, that correlates with the investments that we are doing, that people feel that, I can grow here. I can build my career here. When we are very diligent with our money, right?
Yeah.
We prioritize. We want to put the money where it makes most value for our mission, which is to treat patients with rare disease, right? We don't want to put it on the table and just not be mindful on how we spend our resources. But I never had to fight to get resources to run development programs.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Not even during COVID when things were really tough. We doubled up on it.
Yeah.
Um,
So, and so, to
yeah,
what extent? There's a photo there of your
our
CEO.
CEO, Matt Klein, and behind there is Noam, who is the leader of talent management. And
Right.
here are some of our, this is from the first group of emerging leaders. Um,
Right.
yeah,
So
very proud. I'm extremely proud of the
yeah.
team and of the program and of the progress.
Yeah. Well, what excites me in the opportunities we've had to work with you is you've also, and it's a lot. Obviously, it aligns with how I think about this. But even as you see some of these photos, you really kind of do work on building a sense of community among the leaders and the cohorts.
Yeah.
And what have you learned about that kind of building a community of leaders, and how do you see it kind of, because you can do it in the context of a leadership development program, but at the end of the day you want to see that translate day to day back on the job, right?
Mm.
And I'm curious, what's your take on how organizations leverage leadership development and do things to build a greater sense of community among the leaders?
Yeah. So I think it boils down a bit to the culture you want to have as a company.
Right.
And you said it in the beginning. I'm passionate about company culture. I really, really strongly think it is the secret sauce. Um, because if you have a good company culture, that is what makes you stay on a rainy day,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That's what makes you talk with passion. When you talk about the company you work for, you talk about it with passion to your friends, to your family, to your community. And that is what makes you recommend somebody to come and work for our company. So I think what we are doing now with this development program, with our leaders that are being like really actively involved and spending time on being a part of this community, it builds trust. Um, it's not so complicated.
Right.
Look at yourself. What's important? But you want to feel you want to feel that you belong.
Yeah.
You want to feel that you are valued, that your voice are heard. It's
Yeah.
it's it's quite basic.
Yeah.
You want to know that you can use your strengths and that you really there are programs in place to help you to be a better leader,
Yeah.
to help you to go to the next level. And we all see, we've been around. I've been more than 30 years in the pharma industry. There is a lot of beautiful posters on the walls. There is a lot of great headquarters that looks amazing,
Yeah.
right? The thing is, culture is not about the walls in the headquarters or the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
Culture is not owned by the CEO or the HR department.
Yeah.
The culture is what you feel when you come to the company. And and the makeup of the culture is each and every one of us who works in the company, each and every one,
Yeah.
everywhere and every day.
Yeah.
That's the culture of a company.
Yeah.
So when we interview and we talk to people and we say that, yeah, we have these great programs and we have fun and we are on first name, and uh,
Hmm.
when people then join, if they don't feel that, then you lost,
Yeah.
right?
Well, two things to what you said, which are so accurate, right? Is it's not so complicated, and I've learned, and certainly with my new book coming out on community of leaders, is when we ask people to define what a great culture is, they often describe community. It's like it's hardwired in
Mm.
us as humans, and exactly are the things you said, right? It's about belonging. It's about feeling like my voice is heard. It's about feeling included. It's rallying together with a group of colleagues to do the extraordinary, and to me that's kind of hardwired. The second thing that you mentioned that I would like your perspective on, because I think it's something else I've come to learn, right? And what you said is so astute, is, culture isn't exclusively owned by the CEO, or oftentimes we think it's the CHRO who owns it.
Mm.
And to your words, it's like it's every leader's job.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, to what extent would you say, in your experience, do you find most managers and leaders understand that, what is a simple idea, but do you think they get that culture is their job?
I I disagree a little bit with you there, if that's okay, because I don't think it's just the leaders and the manager. I think it is everyone that works for the company. We are all together collectively responsible for the culture of the company, the way we behave towards each other. Now, of course, there is a special responsibility on everyone who has leadership responsibility and people responsibility. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this in a podcast, but you can take it away if it's not
Go
allowed.
ahead.
No,
Say, in fact,
I'm not
and I was
reaching
referencing that special responsibility
Oh,
that
we
leaders
have
and
this
managers.
very
Go ahead,
easy.
go for it. This is when the conversation gets good. Gets really good.
We have this saying that we have a no asshole policy in the
Ah,
company. You
yeah,
know, you behave, you're kind, you're kind, and you behave, and you're
yeah,
respectful. That's and if you're not, PTC is simply not the place for you.
yeah,
And I think we are quite good, because let's say when we do performance reviews and we have our expectations, the
yeah,
PTC expectations, which, by the way, is what we created
yeah,
ourselves. Expectation that works for us. Like, for example, think like an entrepreneur. Be brave, be bold, be kind, ever better, passionate about purpose, all these things. That's part of our culture of who we are. So when we nominate to these programs, even if you are somebody who performs like that, the what is fantastic, like everything you touch is amazing, but you break tons of glass and you break people's heart and you don't live according to those values that we have as a company,
yeah,
that doesn't work.
yeah,
And we really, really pay attention to that.
yeah.
And I
Well,
think that's part of the culture. It
yeah,
it is felt that you behave, you are a good person.
yeah. And that's kind of, so you raised two really good, important points that we've learned, and I certainly speak about it and write about it, is, you've made your expectations clear around one PTC and what you expect, not just leaders and managers, but everyone, around what are the behavioral expectations of everyone. And number two is, you hold people to live up to those expectations. And when they don't, conversations happen.
Yeah.
So, Vince is part of PTC and is knocking it out of the park on a performance, but is impossible to work with and violates every expectation. That's not okay. And
No.
I think that's what I've learned, is where a lot of organizations fail, or drop the ball, is they don't appreciate how unrelenting you have to be in upholding those expectations. And have written about this pretty directly and in black and white, which is zero tolerance for bad
Mm.
leadership behavior.
Yeah.
It's the only way you're able to create what you've created, you and everyone at PTC has created, right? Why the culture continues to be vibrant, continues to be strong, continues to be attractive to new people joining and people who are staying. It's part of it is, here's what we expect, and what we won't tolerate, and and then having the courage to have those tough conversations and do the tough things that we have to do sometimes when there's misalignment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes tons of sense. And of course,
Yeah,
as leaders, you have a special responsibility. You
yeah,
have to act as a role model.
Yeah, and really, as I said, it is a special part of a leader and manager's job because they're leading people, right?
Yeah.
So I want to bring this great conversation to a close. But what would be sort of some final words of advice would you have for CHROs or heads of learning and leadership development and how they're thinking about really, developing a strong community of leaders, a strong leadership culture, um, and how do you leverage leadership development to do that? What would be your final thoughts?
So first of all, don't make things too complicated. I know it doesn't have to be. Stay close to people. Don't stay in your swim line. Yes, don't pretend that you are, don't pretend that you are a surgeon if you're not, obviously. But take a broad interest. Learn as much as possible. Network with people. Put yourself in their shoes. Try to understand, the pain points and also as much as the happy ones. Um, I think I think the conference table is somewhat underrated.
Hmm.
I think a lot of good things happen when you gather people around a table and have open conversations. Um, the world gets more and more volatile. I think we, CHRO leaders, we have to prepare people. We have to help our leaders be good coaches and be
Yeah,
close to people. And then we have to use tools that can free us up so that we can do more of that. Because I think in the future, it will be important to do more of connecting with people, be there,
yeah,
support. And then it's great that there are tools out there like AI that, when it's used smart,
yeah,
can help you free up some time.
yeah. In many ways, you're, sort of where my thinking is now is we've got to, and I agree with you, not just today, but into the future, we're going to need leaders and managers who are good community builders, right?
Yeah.
Who connect with their people, really reinforce the culture and inspire them, and have each other inspire one another every day. So, well, thank you
Can
for this,
I,
Hege. Oh, go ahead.
Vince,
Last word on you.
yeah, can I just I want to give an advice to young people because,
Yeah.
I have the pleasure of working with really people from all generations and just want to say to young people, don't be afraid to try new things.
Yeah.
If you know what you want, be intentional about it, but do not be entitled and don't walk into a room bigger than the door. Now,
Mm,
that goes for all people in whatever position you have in a company. Listen as much as you speak, but at the end of the day, make up your own mind. And don't focus only on the career ladder, on the climb. Focus also on the lattice. It's great to learn a lot. Walk sideways. That's absolutely great. Get a mentor. And when you fall on your face, because you will over and over again, get up.
yeah.
There is no future in building a house in Pity City, no future whatsoever. And then I just want to say to companies and managers, give them a chance.
Yeah.
Hire young people, unexperienced people. Yes, it's more work in the beginning, but it pays off.
Yeah.
And these people, they don't get a chance to get experience if we don't open the doors for them. So
Yeah.
that would
Awesome.
be my last.
Well, thank you for that really valuable advice to young and future leaders. I'm sure they will really take a lot away from that. So, well, thank you, Hege, for spending time with us, sharing the great work that you and your team have been doing at PTC Therapeutics. And thank you also for really, letting us kind of go behind the curtain to really understand kind of what works, what to pay attention to. Particularly in building a strong sense of community, among leaders and employees within our organization. So, thank you so much. Again, appreciate your time and your wisdom.
Thank you, Vince. It was a pleasure.